soon on Netflix.
It's always a question which actually doesn't imply answer no, yes.
Right. So welcome everybody. I think this is the third session from the Customer Focus Week in 2023. It's the third iteration overall of the customer event. On Monday, we had a nice session. We kicked it off with a nice session regarding customer experiences. Yesterday, we had another session from our colleagues from Ukraine regarding some nice customer experiences from their project. Today is our session. As the theme for this year is value. We aim to have an open discussion about value, what it means to us, our projects, our customers. We said it's a journey, but let's find out in the next minutes. My name is Radu. I'm a delivery manager in Levi 9. I'm also part of the local customer focus team. Together with me, we have our very own Codrin.
Hello.
And not to be totally biased, we have a special guest. It's always good to have, let's say, an outside opinion. We have Andrei. He has an extensive experience in IT, coaching, training, leadership. So I think it's good to have an open conversation regarding what value means, how to get there, what value is in general, not only for, let's say, projects, but also for customers, stakeholders. So yeah, without further ado, I would say let's kick it off. And yeah, I pass the conversation to Andrei, which has some interesting questions for us and topics. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You are on mute somehow. Still on mute, yeah.
All muted. Everything is muted.
And now aliens have arrived. Great. Can you hear us now?
Yes, you are back, yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's back or just me?
Can you hear me as well?
Can you hear Andrei? Or is just me?
Yes.
Okay. So then, hello everyone, I'm Andrei. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I will serve as a bit of an interviewer for the guys. So we want to have this as conversation-like as possible. We have a few slides, but it's just to remind us what we talk about. So it's going to be a discussion, and I'll be the one first asking the questions, but also participating in the questions. From the audience in the room or the audience in other places, we're happy to take your questions. Any questions you have, please type them in Teams. If you're somewhere else, or raise your hand if you're here. We will answer them as we go, maybe not instantly, but we'll have multiple points when I answer questions. And we will also have some questions for you once in a while. And we'll send you a Kahoot link for that, but that comes later. So we want to get your opinion as well. So the more interactive we can make this, the better, right? So let's try to do that. Let's see if this one works now that we're working with technology. This doesn't work. Okay, perfect. Next one, please. Okay, I'll go back. I'm clicking. Yeah. Previous one. Perfect. First question, the fundamental question, the basic question. It's a general question, but let's get as specific as possible in the answers. What is value? So what do you think value is?
Oh, that's why we're here.
Starting with the big one, right?
Yeah. That's why we're here to find out. I don't think it's a very straightforward answer. I think value means something different depending on what you're looking at. You can look at a product. Okay. And you can think about what is the value of that product. You can, I don't know, think about a customer relationship. What is the value there? I think it depends very much on the context. I think it's not something that is straightforward. And on top, I think the most important thing is that it needs to be discovered. It needs to be discovered. So yeah, from my experience, value has different forms. I'm thinking now, I have a customer, a project that appreciates very much contribution, conversations, discussions. It's all about product discovery. It's all about how to build the perfect product, to have extensive conversations on what is the best technical approach, what is the best tech stack, and so on and so forth. I know that for him, it's important to have these conversations. And although it might seem counterproductive, let's say, we focus more on conversation than on actually building stuff. I know that for him, conversation is what really ticks his box of, yes, I like to work with these guys. This is what I actually want, and yeah, let's continue. Yeah. So it's always contextual, I think. I think it depends on the time, the person, the project. So yeah. It's an unexpected journey.
A hobbit.
Exactly.
Do you agree with that, Codrin, or do you have a different approach to value?
I agree that it is a two-way street, indeed. Value is value is different from the eyes of an engineer. For you as an engineer, as a developer, value might be what I get from this project, from working at this project, what I get to develop myself further and things like that. When you look through the customer size, most of the times value has to be understood, especially by you as a developer, has to be discovered. More often than not, we as developers value things that in a different scale than what the customers or what the business sees things. So there's always this discovery process, this mutual understanding. Okay, it might be meaningful to me, it might be valuable to you. You need to understand, and you need to basically see what powers that project, that business, what goals does it have, what metrics does it look at, and then from that, I'm sure we can infer what is value for that project, for that work. Value can be different based on the domain. Value can be different based on what it is you are doing there. But in the end of the day, I guess it can be summarized to good feedback, good delivery, happy customers, happy developers. If you're happy, if the customer is happy, I think you're on the right path to discovering value, I guess.
So both of your answers rely a lot on really understanding the customer and just communicating and just understanding what they want, and then them understanding what you can deliver and having that continuous conversation. There's no formula you can apply abstractly. What do you think is the relationship? And I mean, just we don't have to get too philosophical, but for example, what is the relationship between quality and value? Is quality value? Is value quality? How do you see these things?
I come from an extensive startup background. So I guess you know the answer to that. It's all about delivering fast.
It's all about speed.
Yes, yeah. Make it work, make it right, make it fast, yep. As they say. But there is always a compromise between these. But I think the fundamental thing is that you as a developer always tend to create perfect systems, whereas me as a business always want to have results.
Yeah.
So there's always this trade-off.
There's also that saying in Scrum that the team wants to do things the right way.
Yes.
The product owner wants to do the right things, and the Scrum Master wants to do them fast.
Yes.
And I think that's a perfect example that it differs a lot. For example, if we deliver software for Airbus,
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say.
making sure it works is really, really important, even if it takes a bit longer. But if we work on a mobile game and we miss the window of opportunity, and in 3 months people have different preferences, it doesn't matter that we come up with the best game. It works perfectly and nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to play it. So in that case, speed is more important than...
Or look at the e-commerce during
quality.
COVID. You wanted to have something online as fast as possible. It doesn't matter if it's not working perfectly, but yeah, you need to have it. You have to be there present as an online store in order to make sure that you're reaching out to your customers. And regarding quality, I was thinking about Boeing and that software glitch. So that was a big issue, mistrust. So I think the value of exactly the entire value of the company went down because somebody overlooked this aspect or didn't thought it was that important. So.
Yeah. We can also talk about ancient examples. Back in 1995, Microsoft and IBM and someone else was working on the perfect operating system called OS/2. And they were very busy building the perfect operating system. And then Microsoft came out with Windows 95, which was a piece of shit, technically speaking. And it was barely running, but it captured the market. And that was that. So sometimes speed is important. Sometimes quality is important. Sometimes the specific feature is important. Sometimes other things matter. But you will never know unless you have a real good relationship with the customer and you talk to them about it. I will also add, I want to tie this to something very specific. I think most of you guys do some kind of Scrum type of thing, or that's why in Scrum people say that the product owner role is concerned with value, not with productivity, not with technical excellence, not with output, like volume of work provided, but with value. And value means not only doing things, but doing the right things at the right time. So understanding what's the thing that needs to be done now, and then doing it at the right level of quality. And the right level of quality is not always the maximum level of quality. It's the right level of quality. Anything you guys want to add before we throw a question to the audience?
Yeah, I would say the old wizards would say any projects can be one of 2 of 3 things. So it can be cheap, it can be fast, and it can be quality work.
Yeah.
And you have to pick 2.
Yeah.
You can't have all 3 of them.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Big
true.
value.
Yeah, that's some honest conversations we can have with clients in the beginning of the projects and throughout the project. Like, what is really the most important thing to you? I know you want everything. Ideally, we all want everything. But what really is non-negotiable in this project? And different clients from different industries and different people in the client company will have different opinions. So now I have a question for you, for the audience. And on the screen, there's one that's going to help us to see a Kahoot question in a second. And I guess you know how to use this. You can use the QR code. You can join with that pin. And there will be a question there. And the question is basically, what is value in your project? Specifically in the project you work, what is the value you're delivering to your client, to your stakeholders, to your whoever you're working with and for? We're not looking for right answers. You know, we're not giving out grades. We just want to see, what do you guys think? What do you guys do? Yeah, so let's give them a little bit of time to join. We're not in any rush.
Garfield join.
You don't have to give us like perfect book-like answers. In your words. Again, we're not looking for the correct answer. It's your understanding.
Value master
has joined.
Exactly.
Try not to Google for an answer because we Googled them all.
We also have Peter Parker, which might be a real name, or we have Spider-Man with us too. And the dude, I think that's the Big Lebowski, right?
Not me.
All right. Okay. Yep, let's click start. There's a timer of 1.5 minutes, so just shoot it. Don't over-engineer it.
Don't overthink it.
Don't overthinking.
Looks like DiCaprio understood the value.
People are formulating their answers for now. It's going to come towards the end of the timer. I don't want to distract you guys while you're answering, but this is called Parkinson's law. And the Parkinson's law says that work expands to fill the allocated amount of time. So if we give you 1.5 minutes, you'll answer in 1.5 minutes. If we give you 5 minutes, you'll answer in 5 minutes. Psychologically, we adapt the complexity of the thing we do to the time we know we have available for it. And that's why it's good to time box work. Set yourself short windows and just see what you can do in that short window. It's looking good. I have answers.
Sold. Let's see.
Okay.
Reliability.
We're not going to go through all of them. That's not the point. It's for you to see what your colleagues are thinking and just to see if something stands out.
Server has crashed.
I think this might be interesting to you as well, not only to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly like the guess what PO wants.
Yeah, I will have a comment about this, but on a future slide. Thank you so much, everyone. If we can go back to the slides, please, as well. And address the next thing, which is a bit trickier. You thought it was difficult, but this one is going to be even more difficult. Okay. Next one, please, if you can. This one. And I'm going to ask you this time. First, so we talk about value, right? But a client, is it just one understanding of value, or are there multiple stakeholders in a client that have different perspectives of value? Do they want different things? Does it sometimes contradict each other? What do you think about that? How does that work? You want to take it?
Well, as a true developer, I would say it depends. But I guess most of the times in companies and organizations, there are multiple stakeholders. That's a given. Mm-hmm. You as a developer always have to, well, understand each person's vision, each person's North Star, if you want. Mm-hmm. Okay, what is their end goal? What is the reasoning behind what they ask you to do? And basically try to be as ahead of the curve as possible. Mm-hmm. The ideal would be that you don't get asked anymore to do stuff, you just do it. And you're in perfect alignment with that particular business project. I use the word business a lot, but feel free to replace that with product, with company, with customer. So I would say it's critical to understand all the key, all the players, all the various interests at stake, because those will actually help you better, like, be more active in refinements, be more aligned in whenever you plan something. You as a developer have the power to say, okay, guys, this is not what this company is about. This is not what the product is about. We're doing this wrong. We're not maybe we don't have the whole picture. Maybe tomorrow ask some of those stakeholders be present in a meeting and clarify things for us. Show us exactly what they mean.
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess it's a continuous project in where priorities change, as they change, so does perceived value from different stakeholders. But that's the software development lifecycle, I guess.
Yeah, never dull, always
Yes.
interesting. Can you guys think about any, not examples or specific situations where different people, different stakeholders, different individual stakeholders from the client side have different views about what's most important for them?
I think that happens most of the time.
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand that behind any user story, it's actually a decision-making process. Somebody at some point identifies a need or a goal that is translated into maybe a project, then that project comes to life and then it's broken up in smaller parts. And those smaller parts, they might become, I don't know, software applications, features, and those are broken down in some other smaller parts, epics and stories and so on and so forth. I think it's, in general, it's important to understand that it's much more than a simple request of adding a button or having something. It's a real need of somebody who identified that that button actually leads to more customers or a better user experience or something like that. We usually tend to get very focused on optimizing the actual, let's say, user stories and refine them as best as we can, understand them, let's say, from a business and technical part, but sometimes we might lose a little bit of the greater picture of why is this actually ended up in my Jira board. And speaking about the stakeholders, usually we tend to think about value and customer, but I think we should also look in our own, let's say, teams. Value is something that maybe we need to identify at some point as reducing the tech debt, or I don't know, we need to do some technical roadmap in order to make sure that what we deliver forward is the thing that the customer expects. So it might not impact directly the business or the objectives, but it's something, it's a stepping stone or something that needs to be put in place for that greater good. So I think it's wise to always think at the larger picture, what is at stake, who am I actually working with, what their objectives, and have these conversations and questions and try not to lose contact with the actual business.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree, and I can share from my experience when I was working in a company similar to yours, delivering custom software services. In many initial meetings with clients, we would meet usually 3-4 people from the client side, and they would be someone like the infrastructure guy, the business guy, the compliance guy or girl. Obviously, I'm saying guy in the general sense of the word. Maybe a product manager type of person there, and they will all want very different things. Like the infrastructure guy would care that our solutions are deployable on their servers or whatever. If they have an architect, the architect cares that the technology we use is compatible with their technology and is scalable and so on. The finance guy wants it to be as cheap as possible. The compliance person wants it to be compliant. And sometimes they have a leader who made sure that they talk to each other before they talk to us, and they have like a unified idea. But sometimes they don't. And we had to play that role. Like we had to talk to 3, 4, 5 individuals from the client side. They wanted different things. And we had to play the role of helping them figure out what is the one thing that's going to be the best for all of them. And I think that as well is part of delivering value, because as a client, I have a saying, which is a bit, as a client, you're buying the privilege of not having to learn how to do it yourself, right? If I hire someone to do someone in my house, paint the walls, I'm not only buying effort, I'm buying the luxury of not having to learn how to paint walls. And I expect them to know, I expect them to communicate it to me in a way in which I understand, and so on. So when clients contract us, they are buying the privilege of not having to figure it out completely, because they have us to help them figure it out. And that's why sometimes, when I was a developer, I got a long time ago. You can see by my hair that it was a long time ago. I got very frustrated when clients didn't know what they wanted. Like, come on, they don't know what they want. And now I understand that that's exactly what they're buying. The privilege of not having to know completely what they want, because we're going to help them. We're going to consult them. We're going to help them figure it out as we do it. And that's a big part of it. Another contradiction that I see a lot is between stakeholders and end users. So for example, a big bank buys from us a internal application, not external, internal. The managers who signed the contract wanted to be cheap, scalable, blah, blah, blah. The employees, their employees who are going to use it wanted to be user-friendly and nice, but managers don't want to invest in that because they're thinking they're going to use it anyway. It's not like they have a choice. It's not a public application. So you always have that contradiction. For example, managers from the client side wanted simple, straightforward, to the point. You go and test it with the actual end users, and they want it more beautiful, more ergonomic, more easier to use, but there's no budget for that. There is some budget for that, and you have to figure that kind of stuff out. And sometimes you even look at personal preferences, right? It's actually individual from the client has a certain personality. If that person has the personality of someone who is like, I want to make quick decisions, I want to make bold decisions, I want to move fast, I'm that kind of person, they're going to value those kinds of actions from you. If you go there and they're like, we're all careful and we check everything 5 times and we like make everything perfect, they're going to go crazy. Like, you're not my kind of supplier. Like, and the other way around. So you have to think about all these things. Who should be doing that? The product owner. Now, I'm simplifying, but no. In theory, again, in theory at least, that's why we have a product owner, because this person is going to deal with all these things and then turn to the team and give them like, here's the simplified version. I've dealt with all these things and now I have a list and you don't have to worry about it. In practice, it's never quite that simple.
It is never like that.
It's never that simple.
The product owner most of the times understands business speak, understands terms, understands some drivers of that particular project, whereas most developers, or some developers, let's not generalize, they just don't care about that. So this is why, from my experience as a leader of teams for quite a lot of years, as I'm also lacking here as Andrei does. Yes.
Yeah, it's full of experience right there.
It's something that you see symptoms, you know. Whenever a story is so refined, so detailed, most of the times it happens because those teams really need everything written down like they are 12-year-olds, right? Because they don't have the vision, they don't share the drivers that product or that company actually wants. And this is why, indeed, and this happens a lot. You as a customer, you're paying someone, you need advice. You need a way forward. You don't want, well, obviously it doesn't apply all the times, but you're not paying to convince me as a developer that what I want actually makes sense or is feasible. You're not paying for that, you know? Okay, let's do it. You want this, let's see how we can get you there. How we can get you what you want. If it sucks, if the idea is not feasible or whatever, yeah, say that, discuss that. But if you position yourself, oh, I don't understand what it is you want me to build because you don't have specs, well, guess what? Waterfall programming or product management, whatever that was called, that was in the old days. In the old days, when I first started, I received like a 500-page book. This is the specification. Implement it.
We're not going to talk to you for a year.
Yes.
Come back with all of it done.
And it had everything in it, like the table names, the column sizes, the data types that you are going to use in your classes and interfaces and whatever. And guess what? By the time we started implementing that, new technologies were existed. And I was like, dude, we can shave 6 months of development time just moving to this new client-side architecture. Oh, it cannot be done. It's not in the book. We need to consult the architects and things like that.
Yeah, and usually it was very long feedback cycles because business analysts would write the requirements this year. By next year, we have architects drawing models. By the time you write the code, the architects are retired already or something like that, or they're in a different company or doing different things. Yeah. So I think, so what's in it for you? We're talking about value, right? You're developers, you're testers, what do you care? Why should you care about this? Right? So one reason why you should care about this is because understanding value helps you to have more autonomy. If you want to make a decision in your team to do things slightly differently, to propose something slightly differently, to optimize something, to change something, if you don't understand what is the value delivered there, you can't come up with ideas. Like how can you come up with an idea if you don't understand what you're delivering? You're going to come up with a very technical idea, like there's a different framework, there's something slightly faster. But is that valuable for your project? You don't know. But if you understand the value, then you have autonomy, because if one thing doesn't work, you can decide by yourself what is a suitable alternative solution, because you understand what the end goal is. What are we trying to do here? You can propose things, people are going to listen to you more, your influence, for lack of a better word, is going to increase, people are going to trust you more, and yeah, I think that's a win for most people. Just to remind you, if you want to type questions in Teams, please go ahead. Do we have any questions so far, members?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, not perfect, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the next slide, please. We're going to skip the Kahoot question. This is just a funny thing I found on the internet, and once I showed it to the guys this evening, they told me, hey, this appeared in another presentation on Monday. That's part of the same event, which is that, you know, stakeholders, users, and different kind of stakeholders sometimes see value very differently. If we can go to the next slide, please. And this is okay. So let's say we understood what value is. We have an idea about why it's important. We understand there's different people with different visions. How do we actually discover it? How do we find out what it is? What do you guys think? How do you do it?
Well, simple. You just ask. You go there and you talk about it. You ask. You try to discover. We recently signed up a project that's quite atypical from the usual work we do. And this client, this customer, wanted the team fast, up to speed, really fast. Someone that can literally start coding tomorrow. And we asked, why is this? What is the background? Can you give us more background? What's your previous experience so far, and things like that? And this customer basically worked with a few different development teams across the world. He had a lot of bad experiences. He said, okay, enough is enough. Mm-hmm. I am going to get in touch with Levi 9 and maybe try a different approach to software development and find someone with more experience. And while discussing this, he kept complaining about, the usual things. Lack of visibility. He wasn't aware what the developers were working on. He would simply just see chunks of code there, no background, no whatever. Some of the code seemed simply copied from another. All the signs of developers or teams of developers that do not understand their customer and the needs of the customer. We're like, oh, okay, we can do this. We can try this. Let's do it. And we started like 2 or 3 weeks ago with 2.5 developers. I'm the half, and
very experienced half.
Yeah, in just 2 weeks we did pull requests for some payment provider in Ethiopia. We delivered quite a lot of work, way ahead of the scheduled time frame or the expectations that the customer had. So much so that yesterday afternoon we were chatting, and we just got the green light to increase our team with one more full-time developer. Mm-hmm. And that's only in like a 2 or 3 weeks time span. And that's, I guess, key, because it is natural. It's not about bragging this project or bragging this team, but it's about just doing the simple things like communicating, asking questions. It's not a problem if you say, okay, I can't answer, I'm on my way to the dentist, I'm on my way to whatever, but be there and try to discover what it is that customer actually values. Mm-hmm. Is it engineering? Does that customer come to you and say, I want the best product ever? Okay. Define best. You know, because scale matters. We had the customers that were saying, oh, my product needs to handle a huge amount of messages. And I was like, okay, could you please define huge? And he said, oh, 20,000 messages a day. I do the math, that's one message every 30 seconds. That's not huge based on other projects that I have worked on or that we as a company have experience in. But for that particular customer, if we would deliver something that would handle double that, that customer would see value. Because perceived value varies a lot between customers, scale, and domains, like you said.
Can I ask you a provocative question?
Always.
So I'm a junior developer and I'm listening to you guys and I'm thinking like, yeah, by your managers, you get invited to meetings, you talk to the big bosses. I'm just a junior developer. Who am I supposed to ask what, how? How do I discover value?
That's actually very simple.
I'm glad that is the case.
Yeah, I was thinking right now, we have a superpower with us, and that superpower is conversation. Starting a conversation. And a conversation, it's not something that you limit to the refinement or to the retrospective. It's something that is ongoing and it's open and goes beyond the actual button and so on and so forth. It's important to have the customer engaged in a constructive relationship with constructive dialogue, open dialogue, in which it's fine, like Codrin mentioned, to show yourself as vulnerable sometimes and say, okay, maybe I don't have the best solution now, but I'll think about it. Let me come back to you. Or also to have the power to say no sometimes and say, okay, I'm not okay with this because of I don't know what. And I think this kind of conversation leads to actual value, because then it doesn't follow a to B flow. It's not something.
Oh.
Yeah.
Keep on talking.
It's not something that is pointed in one direction. The product owner asks, we deliver. It's something that goes both ways, in the sense that, okay, we have some requests, then we come back and say, why is this? Can you give me more context?
Yeah.
And goes beyond the technical aspects, such as tech stack and technical direction and solution. It's more like, why do you need this? What is your concern? What is what you are trying to achieve? What is your fear? What is, I don't know, these kind of questions that go beyond the actual technical stuff and goes more into the business side, performance, I don't know, something more of a, let's say, customer's environment and ecosystem, and to understand where that question actually comes from, and not to deal only with the end result, which is a user story or a simple request. So I would say conversations, let's engage in conversation. I got a question at some point that, okay, I'm a junior, what value can I bring? And I said, okay, ask 150 questions. I bet 10 out of 150 nobody heard about. So that's your superpower, that's your value. That's something that, top of my head, I can say you are bringing to the table. Also, you're coming from, let's say, another project. You can bring fresh insight. You're not biased. Value is everywhere. You just need to keep an open mind, engage in this conversation, be genuinely interested in the topic, and say, okay, what we are trying to achieve here as a team, as a project, and then go beyond the obvious.
Does anyone know what groupthink is? Can you raise your hands? I'm not going to ask you to say it, just to see it. Okay. So groupthink is a well-documented social phenomenon where multiple skilled, competent, motivated people get together, and together they make very stupid decisions. So stupid that when you look at them after the fact, you ask yourselves, how could they think that?
Yes.
And this is how it happens. Taking the example, like you said, what is huge?
Yeah.
Let's say there's 5 people in the room and the client says we have huge volume. And I'm thinking, what is huge? But then I look around and nobody else says anything. And then I'm thinking, okay, I must be the only one who doesn't know what huge means. Maybe I missed an email. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Everyone else seems to be comfortable with the idea. I don't want to ask what huge is because I'm going to look stupid. While I'm thinking that, everyone else is thinking the same thing. Nobody's asking the question. We don't know what huge is. And this happens again and again and again and again. And that's why sometimes you should be asking questions that seem a little bit stupid in your head. If you're not sure how to put it, you can put it like, hey guys, I'm sorry if you already discussed this, but just quickly, did we define that? Did we clarify that? And if they say, yeah, it's fine, okay, no problem, thank you, not a big deal. But sometimes they're going to say, whoa, no, that's a good question. Thanks for asking it. And to your surprise, once you say it, if you're the first one to say it, there are going to be 3, 4 other people like, yeah, I was thinking about the same thing. Yeah, but you didn't say anything. That's why it doesn't matter how junior you are, it doesn't matter how expert you are, just ask the question.
I was thinking now that I never heard in a meeting somebody say, whoa, that's a really stupid question. I mean, everybody hears that, but I actually never heard it. Like somebody saying that's really, really, really stupid. How could you ask?
Even if it's a quote unquote stupid question, in the sense that everyone except the person asking it knows the answer, there's still value in that question in the sense that the person who asked it now learned something new. Even if all others knew it, now I know it too. So that's still a plus. So it's still a little win.
And also I can see, I don't know, as a product owner where my team is. Mm-hmm. If they ask some basic questions, then my understanding is that maybe I wasn't very specific. So the team is still on a base level. So that's, I have some meaning, I have some value. So there isn't actually.
There's value.
No, go ahead.
One more thing I want to tell is don't trust things. I mean, let me qualify that. Even if the client comes to you in the beginning of the project and they come with a PowerPoint and they say, this is what we want and this is what value means to us, don't trust it. I'm not saying they're trying to trick you. Trust them that they're trying to communicate things to you, but they're people, they make mistakes. That document is imperfect, just like any other document in the world. So if it says something on the document, ask questions like, can you give me an example of that? If they say they have a problem, they have a big problem, just ask a question. How often does it happen? When did it happen last time? What happened? How did you deal with it? Just probe around, right? Don't assume that they have the perfect understanding of their own problem or that they have the perfect document. Just push a little in a very collaborative way. Ask questions, probe around, and you're going to find out things that might surprise even them sometimes. So don't just receive the requirements and take them like, oh, this is the Bible, right? No, sometimes it's not the Bible. Sometimes we need to talk a little bit about it. If you guys want to say something on this one, if not, we can keep moving.
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, if you want to go to the next slide. This is just a little slide. I want to talk a little bit about it. It relates to everything we've talked about, and it relates to your answers from the questions we asked you. There's 2 ways to think about value. On the left, we have what I call generic value, which is the intrinsic value of the product you're building. And if we have a car, the intrinsic value of that car is its performance, its features, what the car is in itself. Most of the times, technical people think about this when they think about value. This is not me complaining about anything, is normal. We come from that background. We come from a technical background. So when someone asks us, what is the value in your project? We're thinking of the intrinsic value. It's fast, it's safe, it's reliable, it's scalable, it looks good, it's modern, it works on all the platforms, all these things. Personalized value is what something means to a specific individual. So someone is going to buy this car. Most people are going to buy this car, not because of what it is, but because of what it is to them. We have a new kid and we want to take that kid everywhere on vacation. And we need this kind of car that's going to solve that problem for us. I want to go camping, so I need a car that can do a little bit of off-roading. And it needs to be big enough for me to put my tent in it or whatever. That's why I'm buying the car. And if you understand that about me, if you understand what that value is to me, you're going to sell me the car much easier. And it's the same thing in projects. We're not specifically selling things, not us, technically speaking necessarily, but let's understand what actually we're solving for that customer. And it usually doesn't sound like we're providing them a reliable solution or we're giving them a scalable application. This is just the foundation. It usually is something much more specific. Like they have a certain business need, they're losing money somewhere, they're losing clients. Some of their competition did something and they need to come with something to catch up with the competition. There's a regulation changing, there's something like that. And if you remember the answers you gave in the question in Kahoot, most of them were of the generic value kind. Like, you know, we're doing safe things, we're doing reliable things, we're doing good things. I don't remember even one answer, and I'm saying this in the friendliest possible way, that was about my client is winning X amount of money per year because we gave them this feature where it helps them compete with their competition in this way, where it helps them solve that regulatory problem or things like that. And those are the kind of things we should try to find out more about our clients. Can you move the next slide, please? Just another reminder, if you have questions, go and ask. This is a concept we're going to discuss a little bit. Have you guys heard about lean? Okay. So if you haven't heard about lean and you think you're doing agile, you need to stop whatever you're doing and go hear about lean. Because agile is basically lean applied into the software world. One of the most important concepts in lean is Genchi Genbutsu. It comes from Japanese because lean was practically invented by Toyota after the Second World War. And Genchi Genbutsu could be translated as go and see. And it's an idea about whenever you have a decision to make, a question to answer, a problem to debate, a solution to design, don't get too theoretical about it. If you find yourself in a room or in a Teams meeting talking to your colleagues or clients or whoever and just debating theoretical things and but what if this happened, what if that happened more than 20 minutes, go and see. What are you talking about? We're talking about that thing. Can we look at it? Can we have a demo of it? Can we see how it happens? Can we talk to someone who's actually using that? It's about being very practical. And don't make decisions in the ivory tower, just go into the reality of things. What do you guys think about that? Do you like this principle?
I cannot work otherwise. I hate it, like we were talking earlier. I hate doing something just because it has to be done, or I was told to do that. I need to understand the why. Mm-hmm. And it all ties to what Andrei was saying earlier. Always understand the why. Why it is you're doing that? Why does the customer want that? Why does the business or the product need that? Mm-hmm. And if it's too abstract, maybe read up on it. Maybe research that market. You're working on a new project on, I don't know, fintech. You don't understand nothing. I didn't understand nothing when I first got a job in fintech. Everyone was talking in terms that meant nothing to me. Mm-hmm. Until I went in my own time or in the company's time, whatever, and I started reading up on those and trying to understand, then suddenly I actually understood what it was we were building, why we needed it done, and things like that. I understood our customers, the customers of our software, what they needed, what they expected, and things like that. And once I got to that point, stuff was just building itself, basically. I was merely coordinating and linking pieces of a puzzle, but I had the master plan, the end goal. And that's basically...
Let me give you an example from my history as well. I'll give you the word in a second as well, but you reminded me about something. So some time back, I had a bit more hair, not a lot, but a bit more. We had a client, and the client was a big insurance company from the United Kingdom, and they were developing a new product, a new website for pet insurance. So you could go and buy medical insurance for your dog or your cat. And we are talking to the people in London, the business analysts and so on. And they gave us the requirements and everything, and we built the website, and it was the most modern website at that time with the most modern technologies. And we were hearing, we gave them, versions of it to test as they were building it, and we kept hearing that their customer service people complained that it's too slow. The website was public facing, but also their own customer service people would use it because you could also call them. They would answer the phone and use this sort of a different part of the same system to solve the people's problems. And they were complaining that it's too slow. We would do benchmarks, we would do stress testing, we would compare it. We were faster than the industry average and so on. Like, it's not slow, right? They say it's slow. And the people from London, from the client, couldn't tell us anything useful, right? So I went to the customer representative's place, which was in Peterborough, which is like the Vaslui of the United Kingdom. And I am from Vaslui, so I can make that joke. And people from other countries, you'll have to Google that one. And I got there, and there were like 300 people answering the phone, the big customer representatives. They were using a Fox Pro application locally on their systems. It was instantly fast, obviously. It was local, right? No web application could be as fast as the Fox Pro application. So for them, the 1 second or 2 seconds a page took to load was slow. They were not using the mouse. They were using the left hand just to, on the keyboard to jump from place to place. They would have headsets to talk to the person calling them, and they would use their right hand to take notes about the important things that person would tell them. Now we gave them a web application for which they had to use the mouse. Everything changed, right? They didn't like it. And we didn't understand why they didn't like it until we actually went and saw them. Now, I'm not saying that we should leave them with the Foxpro application, but what I'm saying is that we spent a couple of months going back and forth with the guys in London about what fast means and proving to them that it's fast, and we didn't know what we were talking about. And funny enough, the guys from the client side didn't know what they were talking about because they weren't the right guys from the client side. And then I listened to some calls from people calling with problems. And they gave me a headset to listen, and I understood what they had to deal with. So we were thinking about all kinds of very advanced things, like optimized flows in the application and solving your own problems and autofill certain fields and things like that. 97% of the problems were that someone was calling like, "Hey, my dog just got hit by a car. I think I have an insurance with you, but I'm not sure I have an insurance with you. I don't know the number of the insurance. I don't know if I did it or my son did it for me. And I think he did it 2 years ago when I was at a different address. So now find me in the system, please." So that was their main problem, of how to find if this person is actually a customer of ours with insufficient information. I would have never found that out just by talking to the guys in London, unless I actually went there and saw. And this is an extreme example, but a lot of times it's something like that. You want to move to the next slide? We're starting with you, Radu, this time. And the last point I want to address is this idea of iterative value discovery. Sometimes you understand what you want as you're building it. Sometimes you understand what value is as you're getting a little bit of it. What do you think about that? How does that work in your mind?
I was thinking before, we said it's a journey. It's actually a journey. It's like when you plan to visit a new country.
Yeah.
You have to build up your knowledge base. First, maybe you're a little scared. Okay, I want to see something, but I don't know how to get there. So planning always helps. Asking questions. What I need to reach out the city from the airport. How local transportations. Where are the places where I should go, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing, in my opinion, with software development. That's why we have sprints. It's value. It's not something that's like happiness. It's not a goal. There are little things that contribute to overall value and meaning, and that's why that we're discussing about. So maybe one sprint wasn't that good. That doesn't mean we're not delivering value. Let's regroup, let's refocus, let's ask questions, steer things on track, and then next time get it better. So that's why we have these small steps. It's tough to get it right from the start, or like we discussed, nobody has the entire picture end to end. It's something that we need to discover together. So that's why it's important to break it down, smaller chunks, try to understand it, and then slowly build it up to, let's say, the greater value or the greater goal or objective. So yeah, that's why I think it's a journey. It might have ups and downs, which is normal, but it's important to always keep moving, try to, document, understand what you're doing, and yeah, keep on track and make sure that overall you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and basically don't do waterfall. Try to showcase what you're doing, try to align, try to see whether what you work is actually perceived as value, and try to touch base as often as possible. Don't just stay in the sprint mindset. Okay, I will just demo everything at the end of this 2-week or 3-week sprint. No, try to aim for more rapid feedback. Like try to get feedback as soon as you have something working. It doesn't have to be perfect. Try to show it to the customer. Okay, does that make sense? Is this somehow related to what you want? Especially in the beginning of a relationship. It's critical. Don't fall in the trap of not being transparent, not being visible, not showing anything, only until the end of the sprint. 1 month later, oh, here's the button. I've added a button on the right. Well, mate, I wanted the button on the left. We've changed that design. You should have come to me. You should have shown me, or things like that. Try to yeah.
And
show it.
sometimes you don't even need to build it to show it. Like
Yes.
if I have an idea, I think it'd be something in the user interface would be cool like that. And I've seen something similar on Amazon.com or whatever. I'm going to show them, hey, look at this drop down on Amazon. I think we could do something similar in that place in our application. Is a final just chat, right? And they say, yeah, that sounds cool. Problem solved. You don't even have to build it to have that conversation. But let me ask you a question. I'm a product owner. Let's say I'm a product owner. And I come to you and I say, look at me. I'm a great product owner. I've worked really hard and I have a very detailed product backlog for the next 6 months. Congratulate me. What do you say?
Well, I would say, I think you're overly, have an overly good opinion of yourself. How can you be agile when you have a 6 months backlog estimated? What guarantees do you have that we are going to be so predictable in these 6 months?
Yeah.
How can you react to change? What if the competition releases something? What if suddenly all your work is unmarketable?
Mind blown. I totally agree with that. So sometimes people think that knowing what we will do 6 months from now is an advantage. It's not an advantage, it's a disadvantage. Because the best decision you can make about what you want to do 6 months from now is the one you make 5 months from now. With new information, with new knowledge, closer to that moment. If you force yourself to make a decision now about what you're going to do in 6 months, you're self-handicapping yourself. That's why a big backlog isn't a good backlog. Yeah, if you have a roadmap with high-level ideas, that's a different thing. But if you're over-planning things, it's even worse than under-planning things. And if you go to Lean, like I told you, one concept in Lean is the 7 wastes. They call it the 7 muda in Japanese. Things that waste stuff. And the number one waste and the fundamental cause of waste, as they call it, is overproduction. Doing more than you need to do before you need to do it. So in this mindset, when you have to make a decision, you should make it in the last possible moment, because then you have the most amount of possible information to make that decision. If you need to do something tomorrow, don't do it today. Don't do it today. Leave it for tomorrow, because tomorrow you'll know more, right? You'll know more. You'll be closer to that moment when you actually need to do that. You do it today, you have to make some assumptions. Those assumptions might be wrong. And this is not about being lazy. This is not about postponing things. It's not about that. There's always enough to do today as well. Don't worry about that one. It's just about don't do things before you need to do them, because if you do them close to that moment, you'll have the best amount of information, the most capability to make the right decision.
I would add to that it's completely fine to be lazy. In programming, we call it pragmatic. Though.
Yeah. Or
it's called like be a pragmatic engineer, right? Right. So try to be critical with what you focus your efforts on and how to maximize the value of your time and your work.
One of the 2 creators of Unix in the 70s had a saying that the day when I delete 1,000 lines of code is the most possibly productive day I can have.
Yes.
Adding things is not always the best thing. Sometimes we create value by removing things, by simplifying things. So if we help the customer understand that this is not needed, you don't need this, you can use a simple thing, or you don't need it now, you can leave it for later, that's a great way to add value. Yes. Just by taking something off the table. Yes. So we're going to wrap up really quickly and see if there's any questions. If you can move to the last slide, we're going to wrap up. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. It's just, we've touched it a little bit before as well. It's just this idea that anyone can do things to understand value. It's not something that's only for the managers or only for the product owner or only for the architects or whoever. We talked about asking questions. Just ask a question. Just say what is in your mind, right? Go and see. Have this pragmatic approach of don't get stuck in ideologically, technologically concepts. You know, developers in particular, and I was a developer, we love to argue over many beers about the merits of different frameworks and so on like that. Stop arguing, just test it, right? Just see which one works best and use that one. Show, don't tell is, like I gave that example. Anytime we can show the people we talk to, here's how it would look. Here's an example of it. Is better than trying to explain it with words. People understand it better if we sketch it, if we show them an example, if we demo something rather than just explaining abstractly. Let's see if we have any questions. Okay. If you have any questions in the room. And they can mean one of two things. Either we were amazingly, brilliantly clear and everyone understood exactly what he wanted to say.
Or we're out of time.
Or we're out of time. Or we didn't give that enough value to ask questions. But thank you so much. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much, everyone. And you guys, if you want to say something, just to close it off in the end.
I will let Radu. He started. He can wrap things up.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Just don't forget, tomorrow there's another session and Friday as well to close the customer focus week. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Bojan.
Yeah.
Want to raise the hand?
Oh.
Was there a question?
No.
We have a hand.
Yeah.
Bojan has his hand raised. I don't know if he wants to ask a question or not.
Do we have a question?
I think he wants to do something since he keeps clicking the
Just
hand. Can
seems
he
like
unmute himself or
a
do you
high
need to
five.
unmute him?
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, and see you at the next session tomorrow.
Thank you for sharing, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.